Yo, how's it going everybody? You got Sketch here and welcome back to the channel. On this episode, for the last pick of the light gun kick I've been on, this one's going to revisit one of the games I mentioned a long time ago in a compilation video about Wii rail shooters you should try. I said I would come back to this game eventually, and after playing all the mainline Dead Space games, including the remake and Callisto Protocol, it felt like a good time to replay this light gun spin-off. We're looking at Dead Space Extraction, developed by Visceral Games and published by Electronic Arts, released to the Nintendo Wii in 2009, later getting a port to the PS3 in 2011. This was a standout for the Wii even back then, along with the Resident Evil light gun games on the console, and once you play through the original games, you get a better understanding of what Pulp Fiction style pacing and Dead Space gameplay would be like. But before banging on too much more, let's check out the story. When a team from the Aegis 7 colony transport an artifact known as the Marker, it begins to cause their unit to hallucinate. Sam Caldwell leads the charge only to succumb to the Marker's power and delete his team before getting neutralized by McNeil and his security squad. Eckhart and Lexine see their colleagues rapidly transform into bloodthirsty necromorphs, and the situation is rapidly getting worse. You're tasked with trying to get off the ship with your sanity and body intact, though the chaos and destruction is mounting as the Marker takes hold of those around you. Gameplay wise, you got a 3D on-rail shooter where you'll swap between several characters on your mission through the colony and aboard the Ishimura as you traverse 10 chapters. If you're familiar with the Dead Space franchise, you'll recognize the weaponry and abilities. You've got a variety of weapons you can pick up during the game, like the plasma cutter, line gun, plasma rifle, and flamethrower, along with the stasis ability, which you will be using often. Using the Wiimote will also let you slash through obstructions, and shaking the Wiimote will activate glow sticks in low light areas. There are several secrets and hidden items through each stage, locked behind boxes and parts of the environment. And there are several points where the game lets you have free aim, where you can look around and analyze your surroundings, often uncovering bonus items and health. It's not all shooting, as there are a few puzzles where you'll need to carefully follow electric panels to safely engage switches. These sections are a good place to farm items, since enemies will keep attacking until you complete the puzzle or perish from damage. You also need to use alternate fire on your weapons to lock and unlock barricades, so you get a break from the necromorph threat. Your weapons also level here as you grab upgrades throughout each area, and these will raise your damage, ammo capacity, and fire rate the more you find for each weapon. The rivet gun has infinite ammo, but everything else does require finding ammunition to keep it stocked. Enemies will drop a decent amount of ammo and health, and if it comes down to it, the rivet gun can double as a utility and a lethal piece of gear. Same rules apply like the mainline Dead Space games, where taking out the limbs of the necromorphs will disable them quickly. There are several moments where you will be overwhelmed by enemies, but with well-placed shots, you can dispatch even the biggest mobs expeditiously. You'll cut through waves of necromorph types seen in the main games, along with a few unique enemies and boss encounters that coincide with the events leading into Dead Space 1. You've also got a few instances where you'll move through zero gravity, so this hits some similar notes that the main games do, and if you play through those, this will all seem fairly natural. Graphics-wise, while the mainline games are known for the use of the Havoc physics engine, Dead Space Extraction uses the Engine X game engine developed by Eurocom. This all looks solid with its particle effects and does have several moments where the visuals are eye-catching despite it being on less powerful hardware. The parts where you crack glow sticks to light your path and where you move through various surroundings do look good here. You move through several locations seen in the first game, and at times get to see parts of the areas that you couldn't access in the original. While the graphics aren't as powerful on the Wii, you still get some faithful recreations of those environments, and going through new areas like the necromorph tunnels and the sewers veiled in darkness give enemies the element of surprise over you almost constantly. The lighting effects work well, creating some foreboding atmosphere as light creeps in from those paths ahead. Character models for enemies return from the main game and has a few unique encounters and enemy types. The boss encounters have some of those same holy shit moments from Dead Space, and the battles do get hectic until you figure out how to navigate them. These become a cinematic clash between you and your enemy as you battle through multi-phase encounters. Seeing enemies turn into necromorphs over time is also gnarly and bridges the gap in the story as to how this all began before Isaac Clarke's arrival. Character models are decent considering its slightly different art style approach this time around. Character designs are a bit more cartoonish here, but work well in creating some truly terrifying scenarios as the story unfolds. You bounce between several operatives and through the game's campaign and see their perspectives and get unique objectives during each chapter. Once you get to the end of each chapter, you'll get a breakdown of what upgrades you found along with your score. There are also several moments where you can sit back and just watch the story progress, as a lot of the cutscenes intertwine with the gameplay. A lot of this entry is watching and interacting with the story outside of blasting everything that moves like Frank Reynolds. The game's ending also sticks to the formula you would expect from the series that sets up parts of the narrative for the opening segments of Dead Space. Sound-wise, Jason Graves returns to compose the soundtrack for Extraction, and it's an extension of his previous work. You get some similar soundscapes with more moody, ominous tracks to the almost James Horner stylings from Aliens. When the music kicks off, so is the action, often at its most intense moments. The ambience you'll hear more often than not will eventually crescendo into big productions of industrial stabs and orchestral sounds melding together. In-game audio is reminiscent to the source material, with its biggest exception being a different cast of characters. Getting to hear all those familiar sounds from the franchise translate well here, and those who have played the mainline games will recognize the effects work. Considering the chain of events are a precursor to Dead Space, only a couple characters are seen from the main game, like Nicole, Isaac's wife. Voice acting is on par with the main game as it bounces between characters, and each has their motives and reasoning for their actions, in addition to resisting or succumbing to the throws of the marker. Weapon audio is nice and punchy, with each impact of shots hitting with grisly intensity. Shredding Up Necromorphs keeps an audible resonance about it, and has some dynamics depending on the surrounding. It's sick how sometimes the sound will echo in certain areas, and the Wiimote has some haptic feedback when you crack glow sticks and slash through obstructions. With each weapon having unique sound effects and spectrums, the audio is definitely a highlight here. Dead Space Extraction is a great addition to the franchise, and arguably one of the best games on the Wii. It's also a cheap game for the Wii, being around $25 for complete copies and $45 for new copies if you can find a sealed one out there. Loose copies go for about $10 or less, so if you're into rail shooters, especially ones that lean into horror full send, this is certainly one to add to your collection. Especially for fans of the franchise, this fills the narrative of the events leading up to the original entry, which are pretty buck and quite the experience to play through. Dead Space Extraction gets an 8.5 out of 10 and comes highly recommended to fans of rail shooters and fans of survival horror game spin-offs. This is a good example of developers taking established horror franchises and reworking them for on-rail shooters. The House of the Dead template works well in the Dead Space universe, and this is an easy recommendation for Wii games to add to your collection. This is also available for the PS3 as a bonus from the Dead Space 2 limited edition, so play this one however you can. And if you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. If you found these videos helpful, that's awesome. I'm glad to use it as a resource. Check back often when we have more reviews and commentaries come up in the near future. But until then, take it easy and stay safe out there. I'll see you on the next one.